Just a show of hands, who here has actually played Lawbreakers? No, nobody. For those who don't know or remember this game, it was developed by Cliff Bleszinski's studio, Boss Key Productions, and it was essentially their attempt to capitalize on the popularity of hero shooters that Overwatch established. But to Boss Key's dismay, Lawbreakers simply failed to catch on, becoming one of the most infamous high-profile failures in modern gaming history. It's not that it was a bad game, it actually garnered favorable reviews across the board. It's just that the game wasn't all that interesting, especially compared to the competition. Whereas Overwatch had charm, personality, and pioneered the hero shooter genre into mainstream gaming, Lawbreakers was sort of the sloppy seconds that nobody really cared about. Just to give you an idea for how few players' attention the game captured, during the closed beta, Lawbreakers only peaked at 7,500 players on Steam. Then, a month later, the open beta had a participation rate of 40% less players. Yup, the open beta, which opens the game up to the general public, actually had less players than the closed beta. And then when the game launched, well, the player count was even less, with concurrent players peaking in the low thousands during launch period, and over time, player count quickly devolved into the low hundreds, and now the game would be lucky to get triple digits worth of players. It goes without saying that Lawbreakers was nothing short of a failure and died an unceremonious death, and it had in large part to do with the fact that the game always sort of lived under Overwatch's shadow. While the game did have some unique aspects to it, it was very much Boss Key's take on hero shooters established by Overwatch, an endeavor that backfired epically. Now, you would think that after such a massive failure, Boss Key would learn from its mistakes and strive to make a unique game in pursuit of becoming industry leaders, not industry chasers. But it sounds like they're bound to repeat the same mistakes with their newly announced game Radical Heights. With Lawbreakers, Boss Key tried to capitalize on the popularity of hero shooters, and now Cliff Bleszinski's studio is trying to capitalize on the popularity of Battle Royale, more specifically Fortnite. It doesn't take a genius to see that Radical Heights took direct inspiration from the massively popular title in terms of art style and gameplay mechanics. At the very least, I could credit Lawbreakers for attempting to mix up the hero shooter formula with some unique elements, like the ability to shift gravity around you and whatnot, but it's hard to shake the feeling that Radical Heights is closer to a direct ripoff. The one thing that it's got going for it is the 80s game show theme, but they don't take that concept far enough for it to really feel like a distinguishing factor. You could at least look at Lawbreakers and say that there are clearly defined differences from Overwatch, but that line is blurrier when you compare Radical Heights with Fortnite. Now, it would be one thing if Radical Heights had released a competent product, but what they launched on April 10th, 2018 was nothing short of underwhelming. Let's just say that it would be generous to say that this game was ready for even early access. Boss Key knew this too, as they have taken to calling the current state of the game extreme early access. Unsurprisingly, the end result is that Radical Heights is an inferior product to Fortnite in every conceivable way. It's much more bare bones, far less polished, and not nearly as fun. It's sort of the sloppy third of the Battle Royale genre who nobody really gives a damn about. When you launch any game, you want to give a great first impression, especially when you're facing the uphill battle of usurping the king of a genre, and rushing out a half-assed game to get a piece of the pie as quickly as possible is simply no way of doing that. PUBG had some leeway in going with early access because they had no competition starting out. It was the first game to popularize the Battle Royale genre on a mainstream level, so it could kind of get away with going at its own pace. But that also came back to bite them in the ass in the long run when Fortnite Battle Royale launched and turned out to be more polished, more visually appealing, and distinct enough from PUBG to set itself apart, and the end result was that Fortnite is now dominating the Battle Royale scene. Considering all these factors, I don't know how Boss Key could possibly conceive that releasing a Battle Royale game in a worse state than PUBG was during its early access will allow them to succeed in this increasingly competitive field. At this point, Boss Key Productions is merely repeating history and setting themselves for failure once more. In the same manner that Lawbreakers failed for living under the shadow of Overwatch, Radical Heights is bound to fail for living under the shadow of Fortnite. We are already seeing early signs of this too. If you look at Radical Heights Steam charts, you can see that the highest peak of concurrent players was a little over 12,000, nowhere near the millions of players that PUBG and Fortnite are concurrently bringing on a daily basis. 2 weeks after launch, Radical Heights lost 82% of its player base, and looking at the Steam charts now, concurrent player count is hovering at around 1,700, a pattern not too dissimilar from Lawbreakers' decline. If Bosky hopes to gain any modicum of success in the highly competitive space that is the gaming industry, they have to either become industry leaders, meaning release games that others will want to chase, or chase established genres by doing it better than the top dogs and adding their own spin to it. If you're going after the Fortnite market and hope to so much as dent it, you need to make a game that's better, more appealing, and more polished than Fortnite, and one that is clearly distinct from it. That's how Fortnite came to surpass PUBG. It was visually more appealing, it was all around a more polished product, and there were enough visual and gameplay distinctions to make it stand out from the pack. Radical Heights does none of these things, so I cannot say I'm optimistic about a future in which Bosky's new game won't fall off the map like Lawbreakers did and fade away from relevancy. Bosky only has themselves to blame for their predicament, as they aren't willing to put the effort and work in to make something truly new and innovative, or to make a game that's better than what they're trying to emulate or compete against. You reap what you sow, and with Radical Heights, one can't say that Bosky sowed much of anything. And yet they still have the audacity to start implementing microtransactions features already, charging for cosmetics in a game whose fate is largely unknown. Long story short, the underwhelming first impression that Radical Heights Extreme Early Access gave us was all we needed to know to conclude that there is absolutely no reason to play this game over Fortnite or PUBG. There is barely anything unique about it, and there are already much better games out there in that space. It's as simple as that. These are all just one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on all of this in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. It is completely optional, but donating even as little as $1 a month will go a long way in helping maintain this channel. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.